Hello all and welcome to today's video. I'm going to go through my 4 acoustic guitars and show you how the caged system, or sort of the 5 open chords, work on each guitar. And we'll probably find some interesting surprises along the way. So anyway, first up is the 15-tone guitar. There are some special properties about 15-tone that make it very interesting in terms of open chords. So 15-tone can still give you major and minor chords, and actually it doesn't give you any in-between ones. So, for example, here is how an E major chord sounds in 15. You can definitely hear like some roughness in the fifths, but the thirds sound pretty similar. Here's a minor chord. So this is just the E chord, and 15 is very special because as we cycle through all the chords, we'll see that they all actually come from the same position. And this is somewhat true of the 12-tet guitar, but not exactly, because in 15-tone, a circle of fifths actually ends up being one 5-tone circle, which means that if we try to tune up the guitar in fourths, every adjacent interval between strings can be a fourth. And this is actually called open Blackwood tuning, because Easley Blackwood did it first with the 15-tone guitar suite. The scale that he often uses is also named Blackwood 10. So I'll show you. Here's a perfect fourth up, or at least a 15-tone perfect fourth up. E, A, D, D, G, G, C, and C and B are the same in 15, because every note you know would be on that 5-tone circle, and then B, E, or C, F, whichever one you want. So, that just results in fourths all the way up. Let's see how this affects our chord shapes. So, if we have an E major chord, it basically looks like the same shape. I'm going to go through the major chords on each string, and I'll show you what happens. So basically, since this interface is isomorphic, there's 5 unique note names on the open strings, and then both the bottom and the top strings are in E. So that means that in order to get the next open caged chord, if we're just going through fifths, which will reunite with themselves because it's 5-tone, we have to scoot up a string, and then whatever's on the top E string, we have to replicate that on the bottom E string. So I'll show you how this works. Here's an E major chord. And we're ignoring inversion, by the way. Now I'm going to move everyone up, and what's on the E string is nothing, so we don't have to replicate anything down there, making this A with an E in the bass. See? Same position. E, A. And then for D, we go up again, but now we have to replicate holding down the 2nd fret down here. So this ends up being D with an F sharp down in the bass, since you have to label major thirds that way. So that's really the same position cycling through, right? So we have E, A, D, and then this down here if you want to involve all the strings. D with an F sharp in the bass. Now when we take this, let's go up a string. And now we have to replicate what's on the top E string down below. So then we put that through there, and look, we have our G shape. But we have to hold down 3 on the B string, because that's a fourth above G in 15-10. So we can't just have this open, otherwise it has an extra fourth. So we do have to do this version of G. So that's how that G position comes from those other chords. So here's G, and then let's do our last one, C. Let's move everyone up a fret. There we go. And then we have to cover the E string because, look, there's a finger on fret 3 up here. So that means I redo my fingers to get this. And this is C with a G in the bass, or B with an F sharp in the bass, which goes back to E. So, if we play all of these open chords through, we can hear that the cycle will go back to the beginning, and it's just a circle of 5 major chords. So, here, I'll show you. So it's E, A, D, G, C, which is also B, E. We went all the way around the circle. Now let's explore our next one, 17. When we're in 17-tone equal temperament, we do have a diatonic scale, unlike in 15-tone equal temperament. And we do have major and minor chords, but their values start to stray far from just intonation's ideal values of like a 6/5 minor third and a 5/4 major third. And if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. But basically, it means the major chords can sound pretty dissonant, and the minor chords usually don't sound as dissonant, but they can. It all depends on how you voice it. So let's go through the open chords here. The open strings are tuned E, A, D, G, B, E, just like in 12, but the perfect fourths are slightly smaller, and the major third is large enough that you might even want to call it a super major third. So let's go ahead and start with E, since that's kind of the easiest one positionally, and it also gets us through those fifths, E, A, D, G, C. Unlike in 15, we won't be able to just cycle through it indefinitely. We'll just go from E to C and then stop there. And you could figure out other chords too. An E major chord sounds like this. Oh, too high, right, to be a real major third? But you can call it major because if you spell an E diatonic scale, or any diatonic scale in 17, the whole step is going to be 3/17 of an octave, and the half step is 1/17 of an octave, which I know doesn't make sense to call it whole and half, but those are the words that people know from the diatonic scale. So that means that, yep, this is our major chord, because if you were to spell an E diatonic scale, this is the G sharp you would get. Now if we lower that third, we can get neutral, which is G half sharp, and you can spell it that way in 17. And then if you get an E minor chord, it would just be this. So that's E minor, it's got G. E neutral, it's got G half sharp. E major, it's got G sharp, even though they don't sound the same as they do in 12. So let's go ahead and cycle through those major chords, and maybe I'll show you some of the minor chords too. So here's E major. Now, of course, we want to go up to these strings for A major, and really, you can kind of think of fret 3 as being a lot like fret 2 in 17. So for A major, we get the same position. I like to use my pinky here because it's cramming so many fingers in. So there's A major, here's A neutral, and here's A minor. Yeah? That makes sense. Okay, let's keep going. Alright, so D has this here. And then look, if we have that diatonic semitone of one size, we can still have this position here, and the D basically looks the same as well, just like A, just like E. But the super major third in this register really sticks out as super high, so it might sound a bit out of tune. It's not too bad. Now, here would be D neutral. Take your finger over. And then here's D minor. So yeah, there we go. Now let's cycle through to G, which will kind of go back around the strings. So to find G, here we've got E, F sharp, G, and the frets I just played are 0, 3, 4, because the whole step is 3 and a half step is 1. So, this one's a bit tricky. Actually, it's not too bad. You play a standard G chord, but just like, well, actually, you could do it just like this. That doesn't sound as jank as I thought it would, like the E major one. You basically can have the G shape, and because you're tuned to E, A, D, G, B, E, that B there is the same as the one down here in our G chord. So it's totally legal for us to leave an open B string. We could also hold down our finger and do D, just like in 12. And honestly, the one with the fifth, I think, sounds better since it's 17-tet and the major thirds rub a little bit. Okay, now let's try C major. So for C, we'd be on fret 4 again, and then we'd make sure to have this one semitone up here. So this would be a C chord. Sounds bad, tune. And then we could hold our finger up here on the 5th to get that as well. So yeah, in terms of all the different chords we'll be looking at on the guitars, the chords on the 17-tone guitar, the open chords, definitely feel the most similar to 12th-tet. Because when you get into the right position, the only thing that really changes in terms of adjacent frets next to each other is like which fret you start on. Because with the 12-tone equal tempered guitar, you'd use fret 2 for like a major second up from the open fret, right? And in 17, you just use fret 3. But if you look at the same frets, the same distances away, you actually get the same chords. D, G, and then C. C might be the trickiest because if you're making a C shape, you might want to put your pointer finger in fret 2 so that it's just one fret over for everybody, but really it actually goes over here. So probably C is the hardest open chord in 17, and then the others are actually pretty similar. Okay, let's try 19. In 19-tone equal temperament, just like in 17-tone equal temperament, we get a diatonic scale. But the orientation is different. There are 3 19ths of an octave in a whole step and 2 19ths of an octave in a half step. And as we'll soon see, this makes 19-tone chords a little bit more of a challenge. Not only because there's more frets, so it can be harder to count at times. Lucky we have the dots. But also because some of the chord shapes are just a little bit different because you're not used to having that extra fret in there for a true diatonic semitone. Chromatic semitone is 1 in 19, and in 17 they're flipped. So let's go ahead and go through the chords here. Now, just like 17, we do want to use fret 3 for our power chords here. So an E major chord in 19, instead of being right up on the fret that's next to these fingers, is on fret 1. Definitely sounds more in tune than the 17 and the 15. Now, the 19-tone guitar, just like 17, is also tuned to E, A, D, G, B, E. But 19 tones major thirds are on the flat side, and its minor thirds are nearly just. Its perfect fifths are slightly on the flat side. So it's kind of an inverse of 17 in that way. Which means that if we had these open strings here, and we play E minor, well, this open string is a G here, so that's already E minor. There's a really popular video about a 19-tone guitar on the internet, so if you've seen that, you'll probably know what qualities I'm about to say for the chords, in terms of triads with the 5th in it. But you can have E minor, and you can also have E major, and you can have E super major. So that would occur if you accidentally played fret 2 here, instead of fret 1. So yeah, 19-tone chords can have 4 qualities. Subminor, minor, major, and super major. And they would be spelled kind of like this. If you wanted to spell them all as G's, E subminor would be E, B, G flat. E minor would have like E, B, G natural. E major would have like E, B, G sharp. E super major would have like E, B, G double sharp, or A flat. So yeah. Let's go through the majors, and the others if they're interesting. Okay, so here's an E. And then going up to A, we, I believe, have this for A major. We have the same shape. But now A minor is interesting. Because if you take that open B string and you go up a diatonic semitone, well, you have to go up 2 in 19. So now A minor looks the same, but E major has that extra fret in between. So it's a bit tough to remember that difference. If you play A minor like you do that E major chord, you get A subminor. So, yeah, here's A major. A major, and we can go through them. A subminor, A minor, A major, A super major. Okay, now let's go to D. Now, you would not want to play it with the same fret orientation on fret 3, because then the B string would not have fully gone up to D here. So this is a D major chord here. And then we can keep going and we can get D minor. D sub minor is kind of tricky right there. D minor, D major, and D super major. So there you go, there are the Ds. All right, let's get to the Gs here. So to find a G from this bottom E string, E, F sharp, G is on the frets 0, 3, 5. Because remember, a whole step is 3/19 of an octave, and a half step is 2. So that addition is 0, 3, and then 3 plus 2 gets us 5. So there's that. And this matches, of course, with our open string as well. So a G chord in 19 can be played like it is in 12, but you've got to remember this extra fret that's in between right here. So this is a G chord. Sounds very pretty. And you can also do that thing where you hold the fifth down. Totally legal. Okay, great. How about a C chord? Well, for C chord, we use the same logic to get to C. A, B, C, 0, 3, 5. And then from here, we have to, for this finger here, we have to go up 2 frets on the B string, right, to get that normal C, since it's a diatonic semitone. So then that makes C sound like this. And then with a G on top, it sounds like this. Good. So let's go through all the chords of 19 here. So here's E major, A, and D, G. Man, playing it with the ring finger up here, by the way, this is definitely a lot more of a stretch than it is in 12. In 12, it kind of feels like this, but in 19, this is all the way over here. So I actually like to do middle finger, pointer finger, and then pinky for a 19-tone G that has that open B string. There's G, and then C right here. So the shapes really are the same, it's just that you have to remember those small adjustments based on the new orientation of the intonation. Okay. So there's 19. Let's move on to 22. The 22 tone is definitely the hardest for a variety of reasons. It has the most frets, which makes the accuracy difficult. And it also has the most rules about how to modify particular shapes from 12 to get the desired shapes. So there's more things to remember. Now, 22 tone is interesting because it has a diatonic scale with regular steps, and it also has what some might call a pseudo-diatonic scale, which is a diatonic scale that harmonizes like it would in just intonation, but with a small irregularity, as well as more than 2 different kinds of step sizes. So, in order to get in tune major chords in 22-tone equal temperament, you actually have to deviate from the regular diatonic scale that has 5 whole steps and 2 half steps. Although in 22 they sound more like quarter steps. And then as a result you get 2 different kinds of whole step. So we are going to account for those when we play through the open chords in 22 tone. So we want to use fret 4 for kind of our power chord spot here. Oh, I hope this is still in tune. That sounds pretty good. Okay. It sounds like a 22 tone major chord. So this is E here. And you'd spell this third with a down arrow, similarly to how you would in 15. So 22 and 15 both require ups and downs to give us quasi-diatonic logic. So 22 is like 19, where it has 4 qualities. There's a major chord, there's a minor chord, there's subminor, which you'll notice is open here. There's subminor, minor, major, and then super major again. So there you go. So this is an E chord right here, and it's definitely the easiest because you've got this power chord here. 22 tone, at least mine, is tuned to E, A, D, G, B, E again. But the G to B distance is a super major third, and not the pure major third. Like, for example, here's what a pure major third sounds like in 22. And here's super major. So this is going to happen in any tuning that isn't mean tone, or doesn't have a sequence of 4 perfect fifths that's equal to its major third approximate, which means we have to make some adjustments as we go through the strings. So for E, all we have to do is remember to put our finger in the 2nd fret here for the major. Let's go up to this A string here, and we actually want to use one of the smaller whole tones to get C sharp down. Otherwise, it would be C sharp, and that would give us a super major chord. So we need to go down 1 fret from there, meaning that A here kind of looks like A minor, right? And here's A minor itself, which also looks like A minor, but if you were staring directly in your hand, you'd notice an extra fret. And then here's A sub minor. So A sub minor, A minor, A major, A super major. So yeah, I'm actually really glad that I can play an A chord with an A minor shape here on open tuning, because I hate the thought of cramming all my fingers into fret 4 just to play this shape. So there's A major. In order to get D on this string, well, we want to go from B to D, and since there are no ups and downs attached to it, it's diatonic using the regular scale. It's like B, C, D is where that gets us. So there's D, A, D, and then for F sharp down, it's like C sharp down, where we have to go up 3 frets instead of 4 frets for that smaller kind of whole tone. So instead of it looking like this and actually being like D, it kind of looks like a small D minor. So that is D. Here's D minor, D sub minor, back to minor, major, and then if you accidentally tried to play a D, tiny D, you'd get super major, like that. So, yeah, there's D major. Okay, now, let's give G a try. We're going to have the same issue that we had with the 15-tone guitar, where the open B is actually not the one we want. Because remember how I said G to B in 22 is a super major third, and G to B down would be a major third. So, we get to G by going E, F sharp, G. And in 22, fret sizes, that's 0, 4, 5. So now I'm on fret 5, and then I have to make sure that my major third is on fret 3 here, in the G chord. And then I have to use my pinky on the top, because this ring finger needs to hold down the open string. So just like in 15, I have to use the G chord where I have 2 fingers up there on the B and E strings. Otherwise, it sounds like this. And then these 2 are out of tune. Although I could do G super major and have it open. And then these are the same, but it doesn't sound major. So there's the G chord. All right, and now finally, the C chord. So, got a major third down here, right? There's C, E, G. And then for C, we want to have only 1 fret up, right? 22's geometry is very weird. But look, this open E again, super major third up from C, so we have to have C, E down for a major chord. Yeah, those are out of tune. So we need to hold the G up here, just like in 15, to get that chord. So that is a C chord. So now let's go through all of the major chords, open major chords in 22. So here's E, and here's A, and D, here's G, and finally C. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really have been wanting to use these guitars a lot more, because I don't want them to just sit around and not be used, so I figured this could be a good demonstration. If you can't tell, I also got a new light, so now my face is lit up when I talk, and it makes the room hot, but it also makes me look better, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, I'll see you all next time. Adios.